Like my mom used to be. Elena knelt down, meeting his eyes. Your mom was a doctor? He nodded. She saved people, like you did. Something passed between Elena and Alexander then. An understanding beyond words. They were back at the table, the restaurant slowly returning to normal, when Alexander did something impulsive for the first time in years. I have a proposition, he said. Elena's guard went up immediately. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's employment. He leaned forward. Oliver needs someone, not a nanny. He hates nannies. He needs someone real. Someone who understands loss. Someone he can trust. You're offering me a job? Live-in caregiver. Separate wing of the house. 6-figure salary, full benefits. Your daughter would have her own room, access to the best schools. Stop. Elena's voice was sharp. I don't even know you. I don't know you either. But my son smiled tonight, for the first time in 6 months. And your daughter looks like she needs stability. We could help each other. Elena's mind raced. It was insane, reckless, moving into a stranger's house, no matter how desperately she needed the money. But Mia needed so much. Medical bills from her birth complications were drowning them. The apartment they lived in had mold. Elena worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. I need to think about it, she finally said. Fair. Take my card. Call me when you decide. An hour later, after Mia had fallen asleep on Elena's lap, and Oliver was dozing against his father, the restaurant manager offered them a private lounge to wait for Alexander's driver. The VIP lounge was quieter, softer. Mia and Oliver were transferred to a plush sofa, curled together like puppies. Elena and Alexander sat across from each other, the pretense of formality finally dropping. Tell me about her, Alexander said. Your daughter. Elena hesitated, then spoke. She was born 3 months premature. The doctor said she wouldn't make it through the first night, then the first week, then the first month. She's a fighter. Her voice cracked. But the medical bills, they never stop coming. And her father? Gone before she was born. Found out she might have complications and decided fatherhood wasn't for him. Coward. Yes. Elena looked at Oliver. Tell me about him. Alexander was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Carolyn died 6 months ago. Car accident. Drunk driver. She was on her way home from the hospital. She was a trauma surgeon. Saved lives every day. And then, he stopped, jaw working. Oliver was in the car. He survived, barely. Hasn't been the same since. I'm so sorry. He used to talk constantly. Now he barely speaks. Therapists say it's trauma. I say it's my fault. I'm not enough. I don't know how to be both parents. I don't know how to be what he needs. Elena reached across the space between them, touching his hand. You're here. You're trying. That counts. Does it? Because most days it feels like I'm just failing him. Welcome to parenthood, where we're all just barely holding on and hoping we don't screw them up too badly. Alexander laughed, really laughed, and the sound was startling in its genuineness. Why 3 jobs? Alexander asked. Elena pulled back her hand, wrapping her arms around herself. Because 1 doesn't pay the rent. 2 don't cover medical bills. 3 barely keeps us afloat. I'm an ER nurse, but I also clean houses and waitress on weekends. Mia barely sees me. I'm failing her every single day. You saved a woman's life tonight without hesitation. You're not failing anyone. I can't pay for her ballet classes. I can't afford the tutoring she needs. I can't. Elena's voice broke. I can't give her the childhood she deserves. So take my offer. And owe you what? Men like you don't give things away for free. Alexander flinched. You're right. Men like me usually have ulterior motives. But right now, all I want is to see my son smile again. If that makes me selfish, so be it. Elena studied him, this complicated, broken man who hid behind money and power. What happened to you? Before Caroline died, I mean. What made you so cold, ruthless, emotionally unavailable? He smiled without humor. My father. He taught me business was war. Family was weakness. Love was liability. Caroline tried to prove him wrong. Then she died, and I thought maybe he was right all along. He wasn't. How do you know? Because Oliver still loves you. I can see it in the way he looks at you. Even when you're not looking back. That kind of love doesn't exist without reason. Alexander's eyes were suddenly wet. He turned away, blinking rapidly. I don't deserve him. None of us deserve our kids, but we fight for them anyway. Elena made her decision at 2 a.m. Standing in her tiny apartment, while Mia slept on the pull-out couch. The ceiling was stained. The heater barely worked. Tomorrow she'd go back to the same exhausting cycle. Barely surviving, never living. She called the number on the card. Alexander answered on the first ring. Voice alert, despite the hour. Elena. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. Name them. Separate space. Complete privacy. I'm not your employee. I'm an independent contractor. We sign a proper contract. And if either of us wants out, 2 weeks' notice. No questions. Paragraph. Done. When can you start? Paragraph. I need to give notice at my other jobs. 2 weeks. Paragraph. I'll have my lawyers draw up the contract. And Elena, thank you. She hung up and stood there in the dark, wondering if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. Paragraph. The Hale estate was obscene. 15,000 square feet of glass and stone perched on a hillside overlooking the city. Elena and Mia's separate wing was larger than any apartment they'd ever lived in. Paragraph. Mia ran through the rooms, squealing with delight. Mommy, I have my own bathroom and a princess bed. Paragraph. Elena stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. This was temporary, she reminded herself. A means to an end. Save money, get stable, move on. But Oliver was already showing Mia the game room, and Alexander was watching them both with that look of desperate hope. Don't get attached, Elena warned herself. This isn't real, M. The first week was adjustment. Oliver clung to Elena like she might disappear. Mia bloomed in the safety and stability. Alexander was gone 12 hours a day, running his empire. But in the mornings, Elena would find him in the kitchen making coffee. And they'd talk about small things, normal things. He'd ask about Mia's adjustment to her new school. She'd ask about Oliver's nightmares. It felt dangerously close to partnership. One night, Oliver woke screaming from a nightmare. Alexander was away on business. Elena ran to his room, finding the boy sobbing, calling for his mother. She held him, rocking him like she did Mia, whispering that he was safe, that she was here. I miss her, Oliver cried. I miss my mommy. I know, sweetheart. I know. Will you leave too, like she did? Elena's heart shattered. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. It was a promise she shouldn't have made. But looking at his tear-stained face, she couldn't help herself. 3 weeks into the arrangement, Alexander was blindsided. His brother, Marcus, and the board of directors called an emergency meeting. Alexander walked in to find them allied against him. We're calling for your removal as CEO, Marcus announced, his smile sharp. You've been distracted, unfocused, making emotional decisions. On what grounds? You brought an unknown woman and her child into your home. You're making Oliver dependent on hired help instead of family. You're losing your edge, Alexander. The company needs strong leadership. Alexander felt rage building. This is a coup. This is business. You taught me that. Marcus slid papers across the table. Sign over control, and we'll let you stay on as consultant. Fight, and we'll drag you through litigation that will destroy what's left of your reputation. Alexander looked around the table. These were people he'd worked with for 20 years. They were all nodding in agreement. He was alone. Alexander came home that night looking like he'd aged a decade. Elena found him on the terrace, staring at the city lights. What happened? He told her everything. The coup, Marcus's betrayal, the board's ultimatum. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I don't know. Marcus has support. He's been planning this for months, probably. And maybe they're right. Maybe I am too distracted. You're healing. There's a difference. Healing doesn't pay the bills. Elena sat beside him. You want to know what I see? I see a man who's been running on empty for so long he forgot what feeling full was like. I see someone who built walls so high he forgot there's a door. Your brother is counting on you, being too broken to fight back. Prove him wrong. How? By showing them you're not alone anymore. She pulled out her phone, showing him notes she'd been keeping. Observations about his business from casual conversations. Ideas she'd had while watching him work. She saw inefficiencies he was blind to. She understood people in ways his cold calculations never could. You're more than just a caretaker, Alexander said softly. And you're more than just a CEO. So let's win this thing. They worked through the night. Elena, using skills from years of navigating bureaucracy in understaffed hospitals, found patterns in the board's communications. Alexander's brother had been embezzling. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alarms individually, but collectively. Criminal. How did I miss this? Alexander demanded. Because you were in survival mode. We all have blind spots. At dawn, they had a plan. The next board meeting was supposed to finalize Alexander's removal. Instead, he walked in with a team of lawyers and auditors. And Elena. Who is this? Marcus demanded. This is Elena Reyes. She's been acting as my strategic consultant, and she found something interesting. Alexander projected financial records onto the screen. You've been stealing from the company for 3 years, Marcus. $2 million, funneled through shell corporations. The room exploded in shock. Marcus went pale, then red. That's a lie. We have bank records, transactions, your signature. Alexander leaned forward. You want to talk about unfit leadership? Let's talk about felony embezzlement. The board members were standing now. Chaos erupting. Marcus tried to bolt, but security was already there. Alexander looked at the remaining board members. I'm implementing new oversight procedures. If anyone else has been stealing, now's the time to confess. Otherwise, let's get back to actually running this company. It was surgical, brutal, brilliant. The story hit the news within hours. CEO stops coup, exposes brother's fraud. But the most compelling part, the detail that went viral, was Elena's role. Single mother nurse saves company, read one headline. The woman who saw what billionaire couldn't, read another. They were photographed leaving the building together, Oliver and Mia between them. To the world, they looked like a family. Elena hated the attention. But she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her chest when Alexander squeezed her hand and whispered, "Thank you." A week later, Elena took all 3 of them to the children's hospital, where she used to work. She wanted Mia to see where she'd been born, to understand her miracle story. They walked through the NICU. Oliver held Mia's hand. Alexander walked beside Elena, watching her interact with former colleagues with genuine affection and respect. "This is where you belong," he said quietly. "Not in my house, playing caretaker. Here, saving lives. I'm offering you something better." Alexander pulled out a document. "I want to endow a clinic. Free medical care for families who can't afford it. And I want you to run it." Elena stared at the papers. It was a full proposal. Building location, staffing, budget, millions of dollars committed. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you showed me that wealth without purpose is just hoarding. Because Oliver needs to see that the world can be good. Because you deserve to do what you love. And because—" He stopped, vulnerability flashing across his face. "Because I'm falling in love with you, and I want you to choose me, not need me." Elena's breath caught. They were in the hospital chapel, Oliver and Mia exploring the garden outside. Elena sat on a pew, processing everything. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Of what?" "That this is a dream. That I'll wake up back in my old apartment with mold on the ceiling and bills I can't pay. That you'll realize I'm just a nurse from nowhere who got lucky." Alexander sat beside her. "You're the woman who saved a life without hesitation, who saw through my brother's schemes, who made my son feel safe again, who made me feel—" He paused, searching for words. "Human. You made me feel human again. I don't know how to be in your world. I don't want you in my world. I want us to build a new one, together." Elena looked at him, really looked, past the money, past the power. She saw a man as scared as she was, as broken, as desperately hopeful. "I don't know if I'm ready." "Neither do I. But we could figure it out together." Oliver and Mia appeared in the doorway, hand in hand. "Are you two going to kiss?" Mia asked with 6-year-old bluntness. Both adults laughed, the tension breaking. "Maybe later," Elena said, blushing. "Are we going to be a real family?" Oliver asked, his voice small and hopeful. Alexander and Elena looked at each other, then at their children. "What do you think, buddy?" Alexander asked. "Should we try?" Oliver nodded vigorously. Mia squealed and started planning their wedding. Elena felt tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in years, they were happy tears. 6 months later, the clinic opened. The Elena and Carolyn Reyes Hale Medical Center, named for both women who'd saved lives, one in operating rooms and one in everyday moments. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was packed, but Elena only saw 4 people: Alexander, Oliver, Mia, and herself. They cut the ribbon together, all 4 hands on the scissors. As cameras flashed and people applauded, Alexander leaned close to Elena's ear. "Thank you for taking a chance on us. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." Oliver hugged Elena's waist. "I love you," he whispered. Mia echoed it, wrapping her arms around Alexander's leg. They were a patchwork family, sewn together from broken pieces, stitched with loss and hope and stubborn survival. They were imperfect. They were real. They were home. That evening, back at the house that was now theirs, truly theirs, they made dinner together. Not catered. Not fancy. Just pasta and laughter, and Oliver teaching Mia a new card game. Elena stood in the doorway, watching, marveling at how life could pivot so completely. Alexander joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "No regrets?" he asked. "Thousands, but none about this." "Good, because I have something for you." He handed her a small box. Inside was a key. To the clinic, she guessed. To here, to this house, to us. He took her hands. "I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. We're still figuring this out. But I'm asking you to stay, officially, permanently. Not as an employee, as my partner, in everything. Elena looked at the key, then at the man holding it out like an offering. She thought about the restaurant 6 months ago, how she'd almost turned around at the door, how one moment of courage, just walking in, had changed everything. "I'll stay," she whispered. "Not because I need to, because I want to." They kissed then, soft and tentative and full of promise. From the kitchen, Oliver and Mia cheered. Outside, snow began to fall, the first snow of winter. Inside, a fire crackled. 2 children giggled over board games. 2 adults held each other, marveling at the impossibility of finding home in the last place they expected. Elena closed her eyes and felt, for the first time in her adult life, safe. Not because she had money now. Not because she lived in a mansion. But because she'd found people who saw her, all of her, and chose her anyway. Because she'd learned that family wasn't blood or obligation. It was choice. Daily, deliberate, brave. And she chose this. Every single day, she'd choose this. The snow fell heavier now, blanketing the world in white. But inside the Hale house, the Reyes Hale house, spring had finally come home. And we're all just broken pieces looking for somewhere to fit. A miracle isn't finding perfection. It's finding someone who sees your cracks and calls them beautiful anyway.